What's up, guys, and welcome to part 3 of things you should know before you compete. I will let this video play, and here it is. And the last thing we'll talk about in this video itself might be in 2 pieces and then another piece, who knows, is that like when you are competing, we already talked about that it's a very small population, but you have like a competitor's eye kind of thing. So when I was competing, even though I was losing weight and I looked good, like I was always very self-critical of myself, because I mean that's how everyone's their own worst critic. But you look at yourself and you think like, I guess a big point would be that the progress is not linear, but it's in a downward trend, or a trend that you need. So progress isn't always linear. I would go weeks that my weight would be up and down, but also just like be aware when you're in prep how you talk to people would be my biggest thing. Don't complain about prep.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares at all. Nobody. And you sound very privileged because you are choosing to do this. You're putting the money and time forward, and the fact that we as Americans even have the privilege to diet is enough in itself. So if you're gonna stand there and complain about prepping, like, I'm sorry, but it's your choice. I understand it's hard, and if you have one friend you can confide in about the saddest things that are going on, go ahead. I had that friend and I confided in it. But like, no one's gonna feel bad for you. No one at all is gonna feel bad for you. Don't complain about what food you have to eat. Don't complain about how hard your workouts are. Like, you signed up for this, and for you to complain about eating less food, like, that's privilege, and just don't complain about it. And know that if you're going to talk about your body, like I would say things like, oh, I look fat today, and people would be like, shut up, Sue, like, you're tiny, like, you just lost 20 pounds. So you have to know how to talk about yourself in a way that's not going to offend others, because as much as it is for yourself, like, you still need to keep other people in mind. I don't know how to word this exactly, but just you are very critical of your body because your body needs to look a certain way on stage, but don't push that onto other people.
Yes. I think when it comes to your physique as you're prepping, you should only really be discussing that with the people who are directly involved with your prep. So if you're having, usually, at least for me, I have very specific insecurities. So my legs typically take longer to lean out. This time they leaned out quicker. And my stomach, which usually leans out very quickly, was leaning out slower. So that was a very specific focal point for me. I was like, what is going on? So I would go to Ryan and be like, I look like I'm holding water, like my waist isn't getting smaller right now, and I want it to get smaller. And it's like, I confide in him because he was prepping with me and he has an objective eye to it. But like, I'm not going to just broadcast that to people, because other people are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Your waist is small compared to mine, because they're going to compare it to what else they see. But you're only comparing it to yourself.
And you're comparing it to how you want to look on stage, so you know what the judges are looking for the most part, and so you want to look that way. And I like would show people pictures and be like, you look great. Like, even people now are like, you look like you could step on stage. That's a very big compliment, but no. I'm like 15 pounds away from stepping on stage, because that's the look I need to be on stage. So be careful about who you're talking to about it, because people don't care. And like,
no, they don't understand it and they don't care.
And the last thing I will say before this ends and we go on to the next one is to be completely open with your coach or whoever's helping you. So don't hide things from your coach. Don't lie about things. I will straight up tell like my coach Nick, and I'll be like, I'm feeling really shitty about myself today. Like, I'll tell him everything that's going on in my mind, and his check-ins even have like biofeedback. So it's not just like, what weight are you? It's like, how are you feeling mentally and physically? How are you feeling emotionally? How is your brain doing? Are you struggling with anything right now? And he addresses that and talks to me. And like, people have told me, they're like, oh, I binged last night, but I'm not going to tell my coach. Like, your coach needs to know that, because if they're looking at the data you give them and deciding from there, like, and you don't tell them something, then they can't make an accurate decision. Like, that's like going to a doctor and being like, oh, this hurts, but lying about something else, and they could treat you for the wrong thing. Like, your coach is there to help you. They are there to help you succeed, to help you be the best you can, and to also keep you mentally in check. But if they're a good coach, at least. They shouldn't just care about your weight and how you look. They should care about how you feel. But tell everything to your coach.
And coaching is also a very expensive factor in prep.
Yes. If you can coach yourself if you know what you're doing, but
it's very hard to do.
I decided to get a coach because I know how I am. Like, being self-aware is like the biggest thing about what your insecurities are, what you know you struggle with, and what you're going through, because I knew that I didn't know enough to do it by myself the way I wanted to, and I knew how I felt about my body, and I needed an objective eye, 100%.
Even if you know everything you need to know about prepping, once you get to a certain level in prep, you have to have an objective eye to tell you like what tweaks you need to make. Like, you will most likely, pretty much anybody who's in prep will keep thinking they need to keep getting leaner, and then you might peak too early. So if you try to diet yourself, you might just end up being so depleted that when you try to fill out for stage, you just look like shit. Whereas if you have a coach, they might realize that you're starting to get like to a point where you're conditioning, like you want to maintain that conditioning, so they'll be adding in food instead of taking it away.
Like, sometimes Nick would do things I wouldn't understand at all, and then like a week later I'd be like, oh, now I get it.
Makes sense.
Now it makes sense.
Yeah, and so you need to be selective about your coach too, because you want to be able to completely trust them. Because if
you're trusting them with your health, you're trusting them with your well-being. So, like, do you want someone to be in charge of your well-being who doesn't care about you or only cares about the money?
Right. You need some coach that you can be open, communicating with on both ends. So, like, we talked about how it's important that you're being honest with them, but you need a coach that's going to respond. So, you can't just be doing, like, one weekly check-in and that's it, because during the week it's going to fluctuate. Your weight is different every day, and if you're not able to address something that comes up during the week and you can't address it for a whole week, that's not really helpful. It's not really that beneficial. Like, yes, it's going to be a weekly check-in, but being able to communicate with them throughout.
Oh, yeah. I had weekly check-ins until like the last 3 weeks, and then I had it like I would text him almost every day, but I would be able to reach him at any time. At the end, even now, I'm in off season. Like, I'm not the most important in other people's eyes because I'm not in prep. I'm not like need his attention. He always responds, and I check in every week. But if I text him or email him with a problem, he will respond. Because, like, he cares. Put it simply.
Yes, you want someone who cares.
All right, this is probably going to be 2 videos because this is too long. Next video will be about the classes and the differences and how to pick your class and stuff. Well, okay, the last little thing I'm going to say, and you guys can leave any comments below if you have any questions or any things that you want to know, but I thought this was pretty encompassing, but I thought I would add, my coach Nick Tong made an Instagram post about it, so I'm going to read this. It's sitting on a cup in my room. I'm going to read it, and yeah, because I think it's a really good caption, and it encompasses a lot about competing. So he said, after a little hiatus, it seems like I've got a lot of clients starting prep. And that I want to give a few tips, not only to you, but to all my clients as well, in order to succeed in prep. Number 1, don't be a pussy. All right, a little shock value, but I truly do think this should be number 1. The majority reason why people don't succeed is because they cannot mentally hack prep. Please separate social media fitness from competing, as they are worlds apart. Yet in this age, people seem to be associating the two closely. Social media fitness is inspirational, bubbly, lighthearted, surface. Competing is brutal, low energy, draining, and requires an amount of mental fortitude that the vast majority of people have a hard time hacking. It will affect your life. It will require the utmost focus. It will suck at times. Be ready and be willing. This is a competition. Number 2, in that, commit. You cannot dabble. You can't just half prep. If you decide you're going to do a show, that decision needs to be made. And from that point forward, you need to be resolved to that goal 110% on a daily basis. Number 3, approach your first day of prep as adamantly as your last, and vice versa. Trust me, you don't want to play the catch-up game because you eased into prep. You also don't want to stall progress the last 6 weeks because your work output goes down due to lack of mental fortitude. Work needs to be ambiguous and linear throughout prep. Number 4, don't be a spaz. I went 12 of 18 weeks, my last prep, doing the same thing. If something is not broken, do not try to fix it. When it stops working, evaluate objectively and adjust. I promise, if you're changing things sporadically on a daily basis, and then he says outside maybe the last few weeks, for those well-versed, you're doing so solely from an emotional standpoint. Put a plan in place and work it. Number 5, remember, it's worth it. You want real inspiration? Toss the bubbly quotes and see something through that many find impossible. The more difficult something is, the higher propensity for growth in all manners, and the higher the reward at the end. Difficult times mold you permanently. Driving through adversity on a daily basis will do more for you than words ever will. So I thought this was a great thing to share to end this short little 3-4 episode series, and there will be another video about like the different divisions and different stuff in that, but just to show you, like, this wasn't to deter anyone from prepping. Like, I have so many good things to say about prepping and to say about competing in general, and I love it, and it was for me. It's not for some people, and I hate when people come to me to ask about it, because I want to tell them the real things that happen instead of just being like, oh, it was so much fun. Like, it wasn't so much fun every day, but it was a decision I made, and I committed to it every single day for over 16 weeks. So prep is worth it 100% if it's something you love, and if you do all the things listed in that Instagram caption, and you can head over to Nick's Instagram to reread it, because I know I have multiple times. So I hope you enjoyed these past 3 parts about what you should know before you compete. And that's all.